Whoever said no man's an island probably didn't spend much time in New York.
Got the New York Times, morning coffee, heading into Grand Central Terminal. Just another day for a New York commuter.
I'm hopping a train north of the city to explore a mysterious island that looks straight out of a storybook, but was actually one of the most dangerous places in all of New York. It was the turn-of-the-century dream home and mega arsenal for the biggest arms dealer in the world, a Scottish immigrant named Frank Bannerman. For years, he'd been stashing weapons and gunpowder in 3 jam-packed Brooklyn warehouses. But when he bought up 30 million leftover explosives from the Spanish-American War, the neighbors had enough. They kicked him out, and Bannerman headed up the Hudson to find a spot where his risky business could take off. The remains of Bannerman's castle are on Pollepel Island in the Hudson River. I've seen it before, but only out the window of a speeding train.
Metro North is this great way to get out of the city north of here. And the whole way up, you're riding all along the Hudson River. You can see these dramatic cliffs, and on those cliffs, these spectacular mansions. But by far, the most intriguing and mysterious sight is this crumbling castle on this island that's in the middle of the water. It's like a mirage, a ghostly relic of another age.
I'm meeting up with historian Thom Johnson, who's going to take me out to see the island up close.
Tom, is that you pondering the river?
Huh, yeah, it is.
This guy literally wrote the book on the place.
That's Bannerman's there, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the island.
Like 100 years ago, the only way to get there is by boat.
This was kind of a legendary island, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, it still is.
Because I don't see a lot of islands in the river. The people around here, I mean, even the Indians, I'm sure, thought of this as a pretty special place.
Well, actually, the Indians thought it was haunted.
Overgrown, infested with snakes, the island was a no man's land before Bannerman made it his fairy tale fortress. But the man wasn't new to transformation. He was only 10 when he quit school and worked for the family business, buying government scrap. But when he figured out he could pocket more from guns and ammo, he struck gold.
Boy, look at that. When you turn the corner and look at the front of that thing, it is amazing.
Access to the island is restricted because of dangerous and frequent collapses. We're going to have to keep a safe distance.
Check this out. Look at this thing. Amazing.
On the inside, it was a no-frills warehouse, but the outside was pure fantasy.
The crenellated walls, the whole thing looks like, you know, it's taken right out of old Scotland and planted right here north of New York City.
It might have been the most elaborate warehouse in the world, but it was essential. By scouring government scrap houses and international bazaars, Bannerman amassed an inventory including Zulu warrior lances alongside torpedoes and Civil War cannons. To this day, Bannerman's over 300-page catalog is still the most extensive documentation of weaponry anywhere.
He kind of creates the Army-Navy store.
Really?
He saw marketing possibilities that were well beyond just the military. He sells to Hollywood, he sells to Buffalo Bill Cody, he sells to John Philip Sousa.
Smart businessman.
Oh, brilliant man.
All my life, I have gravitated toward Army-Navy stores. Half my wardrobe is bought in an Army-Navy store.
Yeah.
So, Tom, I'm seeing out in the water this, like, is that a turret? What would you call it? Some sort of tower in the water there.
Well, that is called the South Gap Tower. Mm-hmm. And what it was the entrance for vessels to come into the harbor.
I mean, he was shipping things up here, literally, from Manhattan on the river.
Well, really from all over the world.
It's fallen into the water now, but there used to be a protected harbor here, part of an infrastructure that Bannerman began building in 1901 with the first arsenal. Over the next 18 years, he added worker housing, a family residence, and 3 more massive arsenals for an inventory that was getting bigger every day.
He had a global business, didn't he?
Absolutely.
How long did this operate?
It operated until 1967, when the Bannermans sell it. All the hazardous material was removed, and they continued the business out of Blue Point, Long Island.
So when I'm alive, as a kid down in New Jersey, this place was being used.
Yes.
In his prime, Bannerman had enough stock to supply an army. In World War I, he outfitted whole regiments, and though he vigorously denied the rumors, Many claimed they saw Bannerman's weapons in the hands of Panamanian guerrillas during the Revolutionary War.
So this is the residence, yeah?
Yeah, this is the Bannerman family residence.
Very original looking structure.
Absolutely.
I've never seen anything like it. It's eclectic, to say the least.
Oh, absolutely.
If Disney had a castle on the Scottish moors, this might be it.
You see it on the ridge when you're coming up on that railroad, and it looks like some huge mansion up there on the top of the hill. You get here, it's kind of small.
Yeah, some of that is an optical illusion because there are almost no right angles on any of the structures.
Was this built by a famous architect at the time, or who?
It was designed and built by Mr. Bannerman himself.
Really? I mean, all these features, it's got so many little details.
I think that's part of its appeal.
Like his business, Bannerman designed his house the way he wanted it. But as flashy as it was on the outside, the Bannermans actually lived humbly with no electricity. They were devout Christians who decorated the walls with proverbs and patriotic touches from the homeland.
I see the letters ODG, the last part of what must have been a big emblem up there.
He had his personal coat of arms up there. It said Cregan Lodge. It translates from the Scottish as Rocky Island.
All right, so that's really the point of all of this, is setting up a whole castle for his family, representing his family's journey from Scotland to here.
Yeah.
A craggy island in the Hudson Highlands, not unlike his ancestral homelands in the Scottish Hills.
Yes.
Here, take a look over here. These columns and the brick archways are all collapsed down. It would have been quite a fascinating looking structure, kind of gathering all his favorite ideas and putting them into one building.
Today, it's like a deadly house of cards made of concrete and brick.
What happened to this place?
In 1969, there was a fire of undetermined origin. There was nothing that could be done once it started. They couldn't really get fire trucks here, obviously.
The floors had been recycled from oil-soaked barge timber that went up in smoke. People 30 miles away could see the 100-foot flames eating up everything but the empty, unsupported shells we see today.
Is this whole thing going to come down one day?
It may. I mean, it is something that, we are actively trying to get it stabilized to preserve for future generations.
What a tragedy if this thing ever fell completely.
Yeah.
Bannerman died in 1918, having single-handedly created a new global market. And the island, once used to get rid of a deadly threat, is now a beloved landmark that New Yorkers are desperate to save.